Are we going live? We are, let's see. Can we? Before we can start, I want to. Where is it? Please. Okay, that's done. Let's see if we can. Let's see, and then yes, done. Fucking Minecraft music. Okay. Oh, first we need to talk about Formula 3 and 2. Yeah, Formula 3. The sprint race. Someone that have a Swedish name, but what I found out is 50% of the father is Swedish, I think, and the mother is from India, but he drives on a British license, so nobody we care about maybe. But he won the sprint race, and I would say, man, Dino Beganovic had a bad start. That was, or maybe half good start, but the first corner made the race not good for him. Let's see. Some more had a. Let's see. I mean, Flourish had maybe decent. I don't know. Okay, there's nobody else I care about. Okay, so it was an interesting fight between. I think 5 people on who could maybe be the winner. And then, yeah, that's it. Then we have in Formula 2. Behrman and Antonelli had equally good qualifying, equally sprint races qualifying. Nothing to mention, nothing happened. Borteleto did a really bad start. What more? Yeah, then after he got the end of the race, he just got past the people, and what more? Yeah, Borteleto I think had the best start, or at least the person from Japan. The fuck you say? Really bad. He lost so many positions. Let's see, who more should I care about? And O'Sullivan and Martins. They were driving on who maybe would win the race or the sprint race, and then they just fell off. O'Sullivan with the hard tires and Martins with the soft tires. But I would say, Formula 3 was maybe more interesting than Formula 2 race, or the sprint race. But yeah, it's Formula 3, Formula 2 is what more can happen. But then we have now it's time for what I would say is the most interesting thing. Let's see, do we have the oh, nice. So here we have the qualifying for the race. Max Verstappen P1, Charles Leclerc close to maybe getting P1, but he's P2, and George Russell P3, Carlos Sainz P4, Sergio Perez P5, Fernando Alonso P6, Lando Norris P7, Oscar Piastri P8, Lewis Hamilton P9. This is amazing. The copium on Mercedes is back, and then Hamilton just look how good we really are. P9. This is amazing. He's fighting with Nico Hülkenberg on positions. And Alpine is nowhere. But let's see what fun stuff can be said from... where do we have it? There we have it. Let's see how fun. Oh, we need sound.
Our reaction to qualifying for the Bahrain Grand Prix.
Oh, let's see. And then we go back to Minecraft.
Let's get into Q1 then, first and foremost. And the massive story to talk about here is, of
Mercedes is gone. Hype.
course, Alpine being...
that's also, but who cares? This Alpine.
the slowest team on the grid, at least for round one of the season. Now, they've gone from a team that we have seen in Drive to Survive. They have aspirations of being in the top 4, top 3, fighting for podiums. And they have come out the blocks 19th and 20th, which is absolutely wild. We did suspect that they were quite slow in testing, but we thought, no, surely they're not going to be slower than Haas, maybe even sort of kick Sauber. But they were last, and it is a disaster for them. They're basically putting a McLaren cosplay on from last year, aren't they? And being the team that's shocking everyone of being the slowest.
Wow, that car looks so bad. I remember seeing a few tweets saying, oh, it looks like Alpine could genuinely be the worst car. I remember being like, no.
I thought that was somewhat copium. They think the Alpine is so bad. I mean, they are so bad now, but they surely will be better in mid-season or in the end, or surely they will not be this bad the whole season.
No, surely not. Like, they might be bad.
Yeah, surely.
And I thought they maybe would be fighting to get into Q2, which would have been a disaster. But to be last, 19th and 20th, is wild to say that, this is a team that, like I say, Ocon and Gasly got podiums last year, and they're just falling.
That's the reason is really clear. FIA ruined Leclerc's race to get P3. or maybe P2. So Esteban Ocon get a P3 in Monaco. Then Sergio Perez ruined his own race in Netherlands, I think, by because the rain, and that made Gasly get a P3. So it's not like there was a good day would have got a P3 in other way.
And tumbling backwards.
Question from the Castaway DC. Is Alpine looking for a way to have a negative amount of paint on now? I want Drive to Survive, I want Netflix round their houses right now filming what's going on, because I imagine it is an absolute S-storm there for them to roll out and genuinely be last. Like they're you know, Ocon was half a tenth away from qualifying 16th, but then there's a bit of a jump to the likes of K-Mag and then those ahead of them. So they've got quite a bit of margin that they need to somehow close up, because it is quite close in that sort of midfield area with the Hasses and the RBs and, you know, the
No, not time. But we can skip it.
second driver of Aston Martin and things like that. That this is not going to be an overnight fix, in my opinion.
I remember you saying to me when we watched Drive to Survive, being like, "Oh, two episodes of Alpine. That's a bit weird." I think probably be the whole series next season. Might be actually quite an interesting watch, because yeah, it's going to be chaos. How many people can they fire? We'll find out.
So the kick Albers were also not particularly surprising. We thought that they would be around there. But Logan Sargent, 18th on the grid, and he was looking okay. Like, he was within a...
Yeah, in the middle of the quali, he looked good. Then I think he... one corner that he failed to do, and then... Yeah, I think he could maybe of qualifying... I think it was him. That he could maybe of qualifying Alex Albon or maybe get in a Q2.
10th of Albon, almost both times we looked at him in Q1 and Q2, but then seemed to, on that final run, not be able to put the lap time in that he required. To be 4 tenths off Albon, that's
I know,
not the
it was
improvement
looking...
we needed, was it? Like,
no,
he needs to have those odd occasions where he out-qualifies Albon. You know, we're always like, oh, get within a couple of tenths. Why can't he just beat him once or twice? That's what he needs to do. James Vowles, who I would follow to the edge of a cliff and off it, yeah, you genuinely think, all right, James is hyping him up. He's giving him all of that confidence verbally, but he still hasn't been able to perform out the blocks, which is a shame for him.
Yeah, it's a shame. It's early days. It's only the first qualifying session of the year, but it is a big disappointment because, yeah, the first runs he was there or thereabouts with Albon, and yes, he should occasionally beat Albon, but you know, even if he's there or thereabouts, you're like, okay, fair enough, you've made it and unlock the potential of the car, but there, like you say, there was that gap to slot into, and he's not done that. So big disappointment for Logie Bear, but hey, at least he's faster than some Alpines, eh?
Let's go to Q2 now, then, shall we? Well, obviously the biggest talking point was Charles Leclerc going fastest in Q2. Not just purely because he was fastest, but something that will affect me for quite some time is the fact that Leclerc's Q2 time was quicker than the pole position time in Q3. So I'm going to be tossing and turning a little bit tonight, thinking about what could have been. However,
so he's only bottled it.
I mean, even if he got the... what do you say? The pole. It would just be on the start on pole to win... or a win for Max and a pole for Leclerc. So do you really want that stat to be bigger?
But the biggest talking point was, of course, Nico Hulkenberg, I would say. Out of nowhere, just unbelievable. that the one lap pace of the Haas is still there. We all wrote them off. I am going to apologise wholeheartedly to Haas. I thought they were going to be terrible. I took Komatsu's words and I said, yeah, okay, I'll absorb that. Fine, they're going to be rubbish. And then they've gone and done that. Hulkenberg into Q3.
Yeah.
Well, he's still 50% right because Kevin Magnussen is still in the team, so 50% better.
Yeah, I don't. We'll find out with Haas, of course. Hulkenberg had heroics last year. He was incredible. He got into Q3 so many times and delivered such amazing qualifying, but then it didn't have the car to deliver in the race. So let's hope that they've sorted out their tyre wear issues, because if they haven't, then that prediction of them finishing 10th could still well come true, because they're not going to score points if they've got to do like 8 pit stops because their tyres overheat. So yeah, we'll see with Hulkenberg. But look, Hulkenberg has a shadow over him that's unfair, that he's not got a podium, but he's shown so many times that he is a fantastic driver. He's won in everything he's competed in, minus Formula One, and has just, for whatever reason, not delivered that podium. But he's just shown so many times that he's a really quick and capable driver, and deserves to be in Formula One even now. Like, he's showing what he can do.
Let's move to Q3 then, shall we? And
did Kevin Magnussen also do that? Question mark.
Obviously,
Probably
the big
not.
talking point being that Max was fastest by
What?
just over 0.2 of a second from
Was
Charles
he?
Leclerc. But as I've reflected on, Leclerc could have definitely, absolutely, 100% categorically got pole position, but decided with his 10,000 IQ not to take pole because he wants to dive up the inside into turn 1.
And also not make the stats worse. If he's
But
failed.
yes, disappointing, I think, for a lot of fans. I think a lot of people were just clinging on, including myself, to the hope that Max wouldn't get pole straight out the blocks. But he did. It wasn't a gargantuan margin, so you definitely should continue watching the 2024 Formula One season. A lot of people joking, see you in 2025, see you in the new regulations in 2026. But Max delivered, and I think it's not the case of that Red Bull is miles clear in quali performance. It's that Charles didn't necessarily deliver a lap that could have taken pole, and then we would have a completely different chat going on right now.
And it is incredibly close. You look at the gaps, and it is funny that, I know it is a big margin now in Formula One, but 0.2, you'd have loved that back in the day, to be 0.2 off pole position. But that's now.
I mean, I really don't like the talk about it's so close. Yeah, close to what? It's still one that will just be the winner. And most likely it's Max Verstappen, so the closeness do nothing. It does maybe something in the qualifying, but not in the race.
Now a massive gap, and yeah, the rest of the order is really, really close.
Question from P1CHL. Is the season over?
Yes.
No,
For Mercedes.
everybody is on 0 points still. There's no points for pole, as I am very aware as a Charles Leclerc fan. We have got plenty of...
In Formula 3, I think it's points for pole. So you could say it is points for pole in Formula 3.
storylines to come this season. I cannot stress how much you need to cling on, okay? Formula One has painted a picture after 2021
No.
that every season should go down to the wire with 0 points between the top 2 drivers. That is not what happens. When we have a great race and a great championship, it hits like no other. Yes, we should have maybe more competitive seasons, and that's a different topic and conversation to have. But it is not over. He's on pole by 0.2, not a second
It's
like
over for
Mercedes used to be.
Mercedes and Alpine.
It is still close. Ferrari, for example, a reason that you should watch is because they have been saying their drivability and their race pace has actually improved. You've got the likes of McLaren as well that are a little bit further back, but Piastri had amazing race pace in free practice as well, in FP2 that was, I think. So there's plenty of storylines. I could go on for another 20 minutes about why you should watch Formula 1 in 2024, but no, the season is not over.
There's going to be loads of excitement. I do actually think Bahrain is a bit of an underrated circuit as well. You don't think of it as like a classic, but it provides good racing and good overtaking opportunities. So, look, we've missed Formula One, and it's been gone for what feels like ages, even though it's just the winter break. So, I will urge people to stop complaining already because it's not even started yet.
Now, let's now follow with what is usually a question, but this is just a statement from Alex Berthagen. 9 cars within 5/10 is absolutely crazy. That's it, right? That if you needed a reason to tune in tomorrow and for the rest of the...
That's a reason to watch the qualifying, not the race. I mean, like, will Alonso now win the race because they are just so close? No.
The season, that's it, right there. Max Verstappen was unbelievable.
I mean, I watched IndyCar. They said all the time, it's so close to each other. And who won? Alex Palou. Wow. It was so close, so only he won most of the races. Man, the hype of the closeness in the qualifying.
Last year, let's not take it away from him. But there are still plenty of unknowns that can happen this year. We don't know about the race pace yet. Perez is down in 5th. It is not
First win for Norris. Maybe 3 wins for Ferrari. And no win for Mercedes. Hype. But more... maybe no win for Aston Martin, but more podiums. Hype.
Given that Red Bull will run away with it, they might, and we can all console each other in the race podcast tomorrow.
Perez will do something
but right
about
now,
it.
qualifying is still amazing, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to how tomorrow, as you say, with DRS, I love how they've done that. They've like, well, we can't really change the rules around the cars because we're changing the rules in 2026. So how can we make Max not get away so quickly? All right, DRS. DRS after lap 1. Okay, then Max will get away on the first lap, and they'll go right. DRS after the first sector, and then it'll be everyone.
DRS in the start.
Can use DRS behind Max when going down towards turn 1, but not Max. You can just see that there'll be tweaks to the rules just to try and keep Max somewhere within that.
Yeah, or what will probably happen is Charles makes a move on Max into turn 1, and then we're all going, "Oh, why is the DRS already?"
Yeah.
That's probably what's going to happen.
Then the FIA like, change it, lap 10,
change
lap
it back,
10.
change it back.
Maybe they should just change it when the race is going.
Yeah.
Next question from Papaya Shauna. Why was Hamilton so much slower than George?
He's bad. He's washed. He should leave.
No. Let's just try and be level-headed here, okay? People that support Lewis Hamilton.
No, airtime. It's a lot of copium. But then it's a lot of air. Hamilton is still good copium.
George Russell has outwardly said...
I mean, how... I thought it was copium to maybe put Russell high up than Hamilton, but I maybe on something.
That the car has been directionally changed towards what Lewis Hamilton wanted this year. The
And
car's
speed
been moved,
failed,
or the seat's been moved more
amazing.
rearwards because Hamilton wanted it.
Amazing.
And George was saying all of these things that I then saw people then replying, going, "Oh, well, he's just getting his excuses in early when Hamilton smashes him and this sort of stuff." And George Russell has done a fantastic job in qualifying. Mercedes only just scraped through to Q3, if you remember. And then for George to put it 3rd on the grid, it is a sensational qualifying performance. I don't think you can take anything away from George there. Hamilton
But you can
clearly
take away a
struggled.
lot from
Let's not jump to
Hamilton.
conclusions here. Mercedes have no reason to make Lewis Hamilton slower this year. They want it to be a harmonious thing to the last lap in Abu Dhabi, because why would they
will
want
not.
anything else? They're trying to, as a team, claw back the deficit to Red Bull. Why would they waste any time that they have with a 7-time world champion
To improve
other
their
than
car.
to improve the car for 2025 and beyond? It just makes no sense. They wouldn't do it. And
But
that's
would
as
they?
simple as that, in my opinion.
Also, why is Hamilton so much slower? 2/10 in the end, which again highlights how close it is. 2/10 off your teammate, and it's 3rd versus 9th. It's not a huge gap, and I don't think it's worth sort of jumping on conspiracy theory things already, because
He want to leave.
you know, people will just make their own narrative what they like based on what
Get
happens.
fired
But I would
early
not be
maybe.
surprised if we get Saudi and it's completely the opposite.
Charlandos
Yeah,
asks,
so much gravel.
is Hulk the GOAT? No, but he is a very good driver and one that gets disrespected massively, memed heavily, just purely because of the
Then Kevin Magnusson should be memed even harder.
non-podium stat, which continues to haunt him. But that, you know, it's whenever we kind of joke about it, like that's just it's purely a joke and a meme. But you know, there are genuinely people that believe that Nico Hülkenberg is a not a great driver, but he's won Le Mans. As you say, in the junior series, he was unbelievable as well. It's just not worked out for him. He has bottled big moments. Let's not move that away from that. But he is still a fantastic midfield driver, which is what we argued previously when Haas took him on. Is that's what they need, but they also need to give him a car that doesn't destroy.
And they also maybe need to remove Kevin Magnusson.
Cheese grate the tires after 4 laps.
Yeah, it's to Hulkenberg's credit that he's done so many races in Formula One, and that, I guess, in a way, if you're not very good and you're not scoring podiums or whatever, you would be out the sport. But because he is good and has proved his talent, and Formula One teams keep taking him on because he is a really good driver, and people can see he's a really good driver, he's just going to rack up more Grand Prix, and he's driving a Haas, so he's not going to score a podium. So unfortunately for him, that will just grow and grow unless there's some miracle. But he is a very, very good driver, and he just showed that again, like he did many times last year as well.
He certainly did, and that wraps up the first qualifying podcast of the year. Tommy, what are your final thoughts?
You won't be surprised to hear this, but I'm going to talk about Fernando Alonso and say what might have been if he maybe did his run at the end, because he was only 600ths off being P3. But it's still a very good performance from him. But yeah, I'm really excited for the race tomorrow, particularly with all those drivers so close. I cannot wait.
Let's see. It's going to be a fascinating.
Let's see. Where do I have it? Fernando Alonso P6, yes. So he could lose more precision to McLaren and Mercedes. But if he keep it, he could keep it. Drowned. Okay, let's go back.
Race will be live on Twitch. As always, Matt P1 Tommy, come and join us tomorrow where we watch along to the Bahrain Grand Prix. We can't wait. And thank you as always for all the love and support. P1 live show tickets are available still for London, Cambridge and Bath. Links are all over our social media if you want to come and see us live. And yeah, we'll see you very soon. Lots of love. Bye.
Bye.
No, thank you. Okay, we can skip that. We go to gameplay. Then we can go to the most interesting thing you can ever watch. And that is not this ad. We are not on Twitch. Only for Amazon Prime. There we have it. We need to do that, and then we can go back and sound, and then
Well, in the end, despite all the hype, despite all the chat about...
oh my god, I hyped the copium. Fucking Mercedes. They are back, and then Hamilton P9. Nice.
About this being a much more competitive season, the qualifying session for the 2024 Bahrain
I would
Grand Prix
say
had a
that's
very
probably
familiar...
oh shit, probably between McLaren or more like Norris, Leclerc, and Max Verstappen. Holy shit!
look about it. But let's not underrate the performance of Max in the new Red Bull RB20 because
Why not?
it was a case study on how to go about practice and then qualifying. Do your homework, don't get sidetracked. Even this morning in FP3, they went out, both Red Bulls, on hard tyres, everybody else on the soft tyre, focusing on
The only way to make Red Bull slow. Give them the worst tire.
trying to get the car perfectly balanced to get that quick lap for qualifying. There were Red Bull doing some more homework on the hard tyre. Just did a couple of laps, a little bit of fuel in the car, but bedding everything in, just making sure everything felt right on the hard and then going to the soft tyre. And again, doing nothing spectacular on the soft. I think perhaps the most interesting aspect of the day was how the cars, and particularly Red Bull, adapted to the changing conditions of qualifying by getting it absolutely right with front wing flap. Here are the top speeds from FP3 through the trap. You can see there Nico Hülkenberg quickest in the Haas Ferrari. That was a portent of things to come, that's for sure, because what a great job that team have done all weekend. Kevin Magnussen right behind him, 318. Max Verstappen not particularly quick, 317, yeah, there or thereabouts, that's what you would say. Sergio Perez also in the same sort of territory. Ferrari midfield and very slow right at the back in terms of top speed, the two Mercedes, which shows how much downforce they're now running to have got that sweet spot, to have got the car more drivable. The downside is that they've added more downforce to the car, and it's not necessarily efficient downforce because it's obviously causing a certain amount of drag. And it's exactly the same story at McLaren and Mercedes, although they had less of a reason to have to add downforce to that car. I guess, again, looking for better tyre management and more downforce. But like Mercedes, very slow in a straight line now. Now have a look at, see what happened through the speed trap in qualifying. Look what Red Bull did to Max's car as a result of all that homework. Right, we'll take out the front flap now. Take out some wing, probably, going into Parc Fermé. 327, quickest in top speed. And Max living with that loss of downforce with an absolutely superb lap. I talked yesterday about how he's using third in turn 10. Most drivers using second. Quite a lot using third now. Kind of depends on the ratios you're using, but certainly the top end of the drivers, if that's the right phrase, using the longer gears. But not many using third for the very tight right-hander before turn 9, which I guess we can call turn 8, that turn 8 right-hander. Most drivers taking second. Max and Lewis, got to say, going through there in third.
Wait, did Lewis actually succeed at doing a good lap?
Third as well. Really nice to see that. Just shows how on top of the car they are. Qualifying came down to the last
P3.
run
Hello.
in Q3. It was Max
Yeah,
Verstappen v
practice
Charles Leclerc. And remember, I'd actually said that I thought Ferrari put a lot of effort in trying to get Charles on the pole here. Good way to start the year, obviously. But their best chance in the race early on in the season was to put a bit of race pressure on Max. If they can get in front of Max, they can maybe start to dictate the strategy for Red Bull. And that's what they worked very hard to achieve. Carlos Sainz, indeed, was quickest in Q1. Charles Leclerc was quickest in Q2. And he looked very good in Q3 until Max went in that last run 0.3 faster. An absolutely brilliant lap by Max Verstappen. Didn't look 0.3 faster, and that's how good it was. And when it is like that, you know it's the epitome of the art. But going back to Ferrari, look where they were in terms of top speed, and they didn't really change anything. 315 in FP3, 318 in qualifying, and perhaps that is the story of qualifying, whereas Red Bull obviously had a lot in hand they could take out of the car in terms of downforce. Ferrari.
There we have Ham and Russell. Man, they're low. They're fighting with the Alpine.
Very unwilling to take that downforce out of the car, wanting to keep the downforce in the car, probably in terms of the race tomorrow for time management, for keeping that sweet spot for the two drivers. And that's the difference really between the RB20 and the new SF24 Ferrari. The Red Bull already showing it's got much more versatility in terms of adaptation to conditions and indeed how much top speed they need in order to have a significant advantage going into the race, and that's what we see there. One of the strange things about qualifying was the performance of Lewis Hamilton, given how good he was on Thursday on light fuel
Will it be
and
copium?
on the fuel runs, and the car looking very good. George Russell went a different direction overnight, they say, in terms of getting a performance lap out of the car. Whereas Lewis went in the direction of really make this car work on a heavy load of fuel, they say. And that's the difference. It seems, I mean, we often hear when drivers don't go particularly well in qualifying, the cop-out answer is always, oh, well, you know, I've got the car set up for full fuel, or the car's really good on a fuel race distance. Let's hope that's the case tomorrow with Lewis. In terms of how they looked on the...
Hope not. I want to be it equally fun for him as Baku 2022. The car being as bad.
Circuit, George on the absolute edge, as I say, totally reflexy, balancy, car control lap. Not the sort of lap that he could reproduce twice over, I don't think, without making a major mistake. And he almost lost it through turn 6, that downhill quick corner. Whereas Lewis never really looked that quick in the car. He looked about as he did yesterday, just that the lap time wasn't there. So let's hope it works for Lewis tomorrow, and that it is a question of he's got a great setup for the race.
This I would say low with Peter Windsor. He really don't like Hamilton being bad, having a bad car. But for other people, it can be the biggest joy ever to see him having a bad car. Back to the beginning, from 2009 to 2013, he had a bad car. And we are back to that glory days.
Race, and we have to be a little bit skeptical about that, if only because it's hard to imagine George Russell being slow tomorrow, or indeed eating his tyres at a much faster rate than Lewis. That'll be the ultimate test to see whether that happens. But he did appear to be driving pretty much as he drove in 2023 in terms of the lines he's taking. He's pretty wide into most of the corners, not the Lewis Hamilton we used to see, where he's really shortening the corners under braking, but still looking really good in the car, very relaxed. But he'll be very, very disappointed with that qualifying time today. Behind George, the second Ferrari and the second Red Bull, Carlos Sainz and Sergio Perez. No real surprise there. But then Fernando Alonso did a very good job throughout. He found 2 or 3 tenths in qualifying. Never did a quick lap in the final run in Q3, but looking very good. Lost a couple of positions right at the end there. But the Aston Martin proving to be able to split the Mercedes, even in this first round of the championship. Fernando will be very happy with that. Remember, his forte is as a race driver, as distinct from a flat-out George Russell type qualifier. So that's a really good performance for Aston Martin. Very encouraging for them, even if Lance Stroll didn't get through into Q3. Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri ended up doing virtually the same lap time, 7th and 8th for McLaren, Mercedes. You could say that's a little bit disappointing. They've lost perhaps a bit of ground to Aston Martin over the winter, but we'll see how it goes tomorrow in the race. Obviously the top speed, like that of Mercedes, is a big worry. Oscar Piastri a little bit off the pace compared with Lando, but when it came down to pressure, again, because he's this great manipulative driver and because Lando's a little bit more reflexy, they two were very close in the final analysis at the end of Q3. And Lewis was 9th, and 10th, Nico Hülkenberg in the Haas Ferrari, and Kevin Magnussen 15th, made it through Q2 in the other one. Really good job, I think, by the entire Haas Ferrari team. Easy for me to say that in a rather condescending way, but what I'm trying to say is a very different looking team from last year. Very calm, very organised, very logical. Big credit to the new team principal there, Ayo Kamitsu. Really good job in the way he's approached things and got the best from the car and from the drivers, as I kind of predicted he would do after everything they've gone through at Haas. This is a very different looking team from 2023. So great result for Nico Hülkenberg. Didn't even need to go out and do anything in Q3. He had made it through into the top 10. Good job for him. Then in the midfield, we had Yuki Tsunoda actually out qualifying Daniel Ricciardo. I said a few live streams back that I thought this one-on-one between Yuki and Daniel could be one of the most interesting aspects of 2024. So first blood to Yuki Tsunoda, even though for most of the weekend so far, it's been, I say weekend, it's actually been Thursday and half of Friday, it's been Daniel Ricciardo who's looked a little bit ahead of Yuki. But when it came down to it, putting that lap together on the soft tyres, it was Yuki Tsunoda who just failed to get through into Q3 in the Visa Cash App RB. We have to keep saying that all year, I guess we are. Ahead of Lance Stroll, Alex Albon, about where he normally is in the Williams. No surprise there. Good job for them, quick in a straight line, as they have been and as they continue to be. And Kevin Magnussen, as I say, the other driver that got through into Q2. Those who didn't make it, I suppose no real surprise. I'm kind of disappointed that the Saubers were not a little bit better, but Valtteri Bottas and Guanyu Zhou, 16th and 17th, never really looked as if they're going to put pressure on drivers like Ricciardo or Yuki Tsunoda. Logan Sargent kind of lost, it seemed, lost the back end, couldn't feel the back end at the end of Q1. And the two Alpine Renaults, last and second last. Very unimpressive performance. So that team for sure has taken the biggest step backwards over the winter. The team that's taken the biggest step forwards, I think you'd have to flip a coin between Mercedes, that performance of George Russell, albeit an absolute banzai lap, and Aston Martin, who sort of recovered a little bit of their rather desultory middle phase of 2023 and looked very strong again with Fernando Alonso and to some extent with Lance Stroll. But the real talk, of course, is what happened at the front with Max Verstappen and the way that run, that way that qualifying, the way FP3 was organised. There was no sign of Max being under pressure. There was no fluster. And that's, of course, part of the way he drives the car anyway. It's not all about reflexes and bravery with Max. It's about manipulating the car, warning the car, letting it know what it's going to do. And as we say, if you can use third gear when it's iffy between third and second, use third, as he did. Absolutely superb through 9 and 10. His big forte was the first sector compared with the two Ferraris. No real surprise there because he's got that top speed on the straight, and then there's another straight after that chicane, a back straight, and then down the hill, of course, the Red Bull oozing grip and balance. So once you've got that, imagine what he's going to do on the first lap tomorrow. Assuming, of course, he gets the lead going into the first corner, which I think he's probably likely to do. He will really drive as well. I was going to say as hard as he can. He'll drive on the absolute limit, given the newness of the tyres not being up to temperature, given the fuel load that he's got. He will be worth watching just through that first sector on the opening lap tomorrow.
True.
No doubt about that.
And
For
then
the
you can
record,
watch
this is how they
Hamilton
finished FP3
thinking about-
this morning. As you can imagine, there was quite a lot of excitement at Ferrari being quick. Fernando Alonso was fastest for a while. The crowd seemed to love that one. Max Verstappen, nobody really took much notice, 31-0. What's Max doing? Maybe the Red Bull's not going to be as good as the RB19. Maybe they are going to be really fighting to be on the front row. Yeah, right. He was just doing his homework. He was just, Red Bull were just doing their homework. He was just pacing himself beautifully into Q3, even though it was still FP3. Lando Norris looked very good this morning as well. George Russell, 31-1. And Lewis, 31-4. It's a little bit of a sign that Lewis wasn't particularly happy with the car. And he was out. He was out, actually on track before anybody else. It was rather embarrassing, really, to be going around.
I agree. He's so embarrassing.
A little bit at the moment when the Minardis used to go out. There was Lewis Hamilton track to himself.
Oh, the glory days have
in the first
arrived.
7 minutes of FP3, going round and round on his own. Lewis probably didn't know that at the time, but if he knew about it now, he probably wouldn't be too happy about that. And then you can see, in terms of top speed, how Red Bull then responded to everything that had happened in FP3 and took wing out of the car and found the top speed they needed to get the pole and to get Sergio Perez right up there as well. So great job around. What a great racing car it is when you've got the thing balanced, you've got the grip level you want, you've done your homework on full tanks, and then you thought, right, it's qualifying now in the race, we'll take some wing off the car now because we need more top speed, and it doesn't affect the rest of the lap. That's basically what happened, and that is how good a car the RB20 is. Does that come under the heading of sandbagging, perhaps? Maybe it does, because in theory, the car shouldn't have been that good with so much wing taken out of it, and yet it was. So maybe they've just been running unbelievable fuel levels up until qualifying, and then we saw the first time we saw them on a parity with everybody else. Anyway, who knows? I guess Ferrari might be thinking that right now because they must have been reasonably confident that they could have got the pole. Charles Leclerc back there looking really good. Lewis will be thinking, what will Lewis be thinking? He'll be thinking, oh, well, at least the Ferrari's on the front row. That's good. Making the right decision.
Yeah, his future team. It's good they are up there.
Charles Leclerc's quite quick, isn't he? Anyway, we'll see what happens. And he'll be a bit mystified probably by how quick George was. But remember, Lewis was quickest yesterday, so that was something. So we can see what goes on.
Something he can be proud
when the
of.
lights go out
Fast
tomorrow
as practice
for
too.
the Bahrain Grand Prix, first round of the World Championship. Can't wait for that. Come and join me. Thanks to Pitbox, thanks to Jetcraft, and thanks to you, the viewers. Take care.
Let's see. He, for some reason, his clips and the videos go on for some time. I mean, maybe 10 seconds.
Välkommen
No shit.
till Command.
Quite. away from that. Turn off the sound. Let's see. We could maybe watch something more. Let's see. Oh! We can see some copium from the race. And we can see if they did some copium on Mercedes. Yeah, they already start with copium. And then some more copium. Or maybe not. Let's see.
Over, the race weekend has started. Here are the main things we learned from the first day of practice.
Yeah, sure.
At the Bahrain Grand Prix, and stick around until the end for our latest assessment of the emerging 2024 F1 pecking order. Regardless of where Mercedes stands in the competitive order, it has achieved its top winter target. As George Russell puts it, we talked about the rear being unstable and we have cured that problem. To use the word cured as an absolute shows a very high level of confidence. And what Russell said was backed up by how the car looks on track. While it's not at Red Bull's level in terms of the impression it leaves on you watching it trackside, it's a consistent car that does allow the drivers to commit on corner entry. Mercedes also appears to have made progress since testing in understanding how best to set up the car. Lewis Hamilton and Russell were 1-2 in FP2, and the level of performance in the car, while not truly representative yet, pleasantly surprised the drivers. That said...
And then he qualified P9, even more shocked to see.
The car still isn't perfect, as Russell discovered when he suffered from some aggressive bottoming out at turn 11 before a tweak eliminated that problem. Bouncing, it seems, is still something Mercedes has to be wary of. There was a suggestion that Mercedes might have been hiding its true pace during testing, but team boss Toto Wolff was adamant that wasn't the case. What really matters is that Mercedes has a foundation it can work from.
Yeah, after 2 years, they finally succeeded to make a Formula 1 car that they can actually try to improve. Wow! I mean, oh my god, the copium that people have had. Mercedes have done so...
2020.
They have won 8 constructions championships. They have done all this. They have all these people. They have all these factory workers. They have all this big factory to do all this stuff, and they still made this bad car and then kept it for 2 years. Is that the proof on they are good? Question mark. And the 3rd year they actually make a car that's maybe slightly better. Wow.
And 2025. Regardless of what its real pace is relative to Red Bull, that's a major positive. We already knew the 2024 Williams came together late, but speaking to team principal James Vowles and chief technical officer Pat Fry in Bahrain, we've started to understand better just how severe the situation was over the winter. Vowles spoke pre-season about the enormous task of overhauling the technology used to design and produce Williams' chassis, which resulted in a massive increase in the number of individual parts that make up the new 2024 car. But it turns out there were more fundamental problems behind the scenes. Some of Williams' processes have not moved with the times. Vowles said the car build was being managed entirely in a sprawling Excel spreadsheet with no automated digital system, and while this has now been implemented, by the time the winter came around there were still people having to search the factory for parts. At one stage there seemed to be a real chance the FW46 in the form we see it now would not make it to the track in time, but it didn't come to that. Williams got on top of it, aided by some overnighters in the factory. Fry described this as...
And I really hope this is just the beginning and they slowly just get better and better. And then they can start actually fighting for wins. I mean, podiums will happen first, but then William win. That would be amazing.
Needing someone to put their Superman underpants on over the outside.
Maybe with O'Sullivan.
Side of their trousers, rush around and save the day, which he says was how things were 20 years ago, not how modern F1 teams are made.
Is he... O'Sullivan, where are you? Are you in Formula 3 still, or are you Formula 2? Oh yeah, it's Formula 2. He had this boring race with hard tires. Yeah, O'Sullivan, P7. He finished the sprint race. So he could be the future first Formula 1, first Williams winner in a long time. If Alex Albon doesn't stay in Williams forever.
To operate. Fry says he's not seen a winter like it and never wants to relive it. In some respects, it's a minor miracle Williams overcame that to ready its 2024 car and improve on its 2023 weaknesses, while also facing up to the reality of an immense cultural and technological shift still required to properly modernise this team. Formula 1 fans can now try F1 TV Pro free for 7 days when they sign up before March 10th. You can watch every session of the 2024 Formula 1 season on F1 below. Terms and conditions apply.
I don't care.
I've been back trackside under the lights in representative conditions in FP2 to watch the cars with the fuel out and soft tyres on, and then some longer runs either side to see what's different from testing. One thing that's not different is how good the Red Bull looks, and I have to say on low fuel and on the longer runs it did look like Ferrari was second best. The Mercedes just not quite as comfortable, especially as Ferrari and Red Bull through the slow turn 10 left-hander. It just looks a little bit awkward. The same has to be said of the McLaren. That was never particularly impressive when it came by me. Lando Norris having a harder time of it than Oscar Piastri. The Aston Martin looks good.
First time I hear actually the wind. There's been a lot of talk about the wind, but Formula 1 cameras don't take it up, sadly.
And I have to say the RB looks good on the medium tyre, but less impressive on the soft tyre on low fuel and high fuel. It's very, very difficult to judge or split the other cars. One thing I will have to say is when the Alpine came through here, it did look difficult. It was the only car actually, it was Esteban Ocon's car, that seemed to be showing up a bump on the entry to turn 9 or coming through turn 9 towards turn 10. That looked like it was really unsettling the car. Obviously I'm only getting a snapshot of the cars here at one corner, one slow corner, but fortunately once they're done with me at turn 10,
they head down to me at turn 11. A faster left-hand corner, usually taken in 5th gear on a qualifying lap. Very different challenge. I have to say it's interesting Scott mentioned the Alpine's bump reaction, because on one occasion one of the Alpines took a little bit too much curb on the entry and reacted very, very badly to it. The Mercedes was interesting, looked like a step from testing a more stable car, but was hitting the ground pretty aggressively earlier on in the session. I have to say the Red Bull still looks very, very strong. At one stage even Perez was getting very, very good rotation on entry, which we don't always see from him if he's not confident in the car, if it's a little bit too sharp for his liking, so that's encouraging. The RB looked decent, a bit understeer. The Aston Martin, very, very nice and consistent. The McLaren was interesting, often pretty good, but it looked a bit wind sensitive and it would pick up quite a lot of understeer with a tailwind here on occasion and leave drivers struggling a little bit on the exit. But ultimately the Ferrari, kind of as we expect, pretty solid as the second strongest car dynamically, I'm talking, rather than in terms of pace, but impressive to see how much progress has been made with all the cars. They all look more consistent and fixed and sorted and well set up than they did in testing.
Maybe one more.
Alpine struggles were one of the big talking points heading into this weekend, with Pierre Gasly admitting some targets have been missed in terms of timeline and that the car is not easy to drive.
Formula 3.
Expectations outside and even inside the team were that Alpine would be at or near the back. And the fact the Alpine was the 9th fastest car based on FP2 single lap pace and slowest on long run pace backs the expectation that it's likely to fall in Q1. On track, the car delivers on Gasly's description, reacting badly to bumps and struggling to achieve a consistent balance. At the 5th gear turn 11 left-hander, the car is visibly more sluggish than its rivals. Alpine has a huge amount of work to do. It needs to get weight out of the...
I mean, how do they succeed to be this bad? This is the most funny thing. They changed the Renault name to Alpine because it will be more the Alpine name is they have a history with the racing and everything. Who fucking cares? But then they after that becomes just worse and worse. It's like your you do them wrong. You should name it Alpine when the car was good, and then change it back to Renault when it's bad.
The car fully understands its modified mechanical platform and makes some big strides in terms of the aero, having underestimated how far the game would move on development-wise over the winter. The only saving grace is that it's not too far behind to be a lost cause. Mercedes' innovative front wing, specifically its highly trimmed rearmost element, sparked questions over legality during Bahrain testing. Technical director James Allison described it as a convenient way for Mercedes to reduce load on that part of the wing, and it remains an
cheating way to succeed to make a bad car better.
Outlier design for the first race of the new season. Team principal Toto Wolff remains confident over its legality, but F1 Chief Technical Officer Pat Simmons has questioned whether the wing might go against F1's overall mission to diminish outwash airflow. In the lead up to the first practice session in Bahrain, FIA single-seater director Nicholas Tambatsis suggested the wing presents no issue, saying the governing body's usual round of checks comparing real-world designs to CAD drawings in pit lane scrutineering had thrown up only a couple of minor discrepancies that were easily fixed by the teams in question. And Tambatsis was even more forthright in denying any reason for the FIA to act to clamp down on F1 teams' use of outwash aero, saying it would take the emergence of a gigantic loophole for the FIA to feel moved to change the rules before 2026. Like Lando Norris, we're slightly disappointed with the progress McLaren has been able to make over the winter. McLaren looks in the mix, but not totally happy in Bahrain, which has traditionally been one of its weaker tracks in recent years. The 2024 car is an improvement over its predecessor, but not by enough to address the specific weaknesses that limited McLaren in low-speed corners last year. That was hinted at in testing and was apparent at times in practice too. This track highlights the limitations that McLaren clearly needs more time to address, and Norris looked to be struggling with these more than Oscar Piastri in the second session. And yet, the pace was there to a degree. Piastri was 5th fastest and had the best long run behind the Red Bulls in FP2. Norris had a pretty terrible session and looked unhappy in the car, so maybe the McLaren can be fast at a track like Bahrain and might achieve a decent result here too, but it's not in its comfort zone. The fuel came out, the soft tyres went on, the qualifying simulations were completed, and Mercedes is fastest? The pecking order on one-lap pace was Mercedes, Aston Martin, Ferrari, McLaren, Red Bull, Haas, Williams, RB, Alpine and Sauber. An untypically cool track for second practice, coupled with gusty
Where's McLaren? Oh no, Norris. Okay, he didn't do any bad lap.
crosswinds probably played its part in mixing up the order here. Max Verstappen was not happy with the balance of his Red Bull, and no one seriously believes he will be only 6th fastest when it really counts. The pattern of the Red Bull's performance, whereby it lost around 0.3 of a second on the straights to the Mercedes, Ferraris and Aston Martins, suggests it was being run with a conservative engine setting. Verstappen also made a small error at the last corner of his best lap. The picture was more favourable to Red Bull when analysing the limited amount of long-run data available. There, Red Bull assumed its expected place at the head of the order, ahead of McLaren's Oscar Piastri, the 2 Mercedes drivers, Norris's McLaren and the 2 Ferraris. There is always a serious compromise to be made at this track between one-lap pace and race pace, as the circuit is so hard on rear tyres. Typically, cars will be set up with understeer, which is less than ideal for a single lap, but which will pay handsome rewards in the race. It's possible that Red Bull has just chosen a more conservative compromise, rather than the car having any underlying balance problem. Mercedes and Ferrari appear to be running with a setup more favourable to single-lap performance. Our trackside perspective was that the Red Bull looked the most consistently hooked up, whereas the Mercedes looked more peaky. In its good moments, it looked very good. In others, less so. We'd be surprised if the FP2 times reflect the final grid for Saturday's Grand Prix, but this early glimpse of a pecking order raises hopes for an intriguing weekend, even if the underlying data hints at Red Bull still having a good advantage.
Not Mercedes fans, I hope.
Where it counts.
McLaren, Ferrari and Red Bull fans will be happy. And Aston Martin fans. Whoa. Okay. Can that be the last thing to watch? Watch along. Autosport, do they have anything? No. Oh, quiet. And I already watched from P1. And the race was now. Let's see. Do I have anything fun to do? What is the plan? See, the plan can be mine out this place. And how fun is that? Sure. Let's see what they have, if they have anything fun to say. Quiet. The Christian Horner cleared by Red Bull. What happens now? F1 podcast from the race. And apparently stuff got leaked. Maybe true stuff or bad stuff. Oh, now I see a YouTube channel I should have in this. Oh no. God damn it. What's its name again? Sort here. Okay, wrong. Here we have it. Kim Illman. We're gonna see some interesting stuff sometimes too. We change everything. Back. Okay, now is everything good? And now we can. Oh shit! Before that, now we can.
The Athletic.
What the fuck?
On and Chris, and joining me to tackle and a few times on the podcast. We couldn't get into it while the investigation was live. So, what exactly has Red Bull said and done?
Well, I'll start just by.
So this is all news. This is after it's just when Red Bull said, it's done, and then the leaks happened. So this is before the leaks.
Reading the Red Bull spokesperson's statement. This comes from Red Bull GmbH, so the parent company, not Red Bull Racing, the F1 team.
What would I do?
The independent investigation into the allegations made against Mr. Horner is complete, and Red Bull can confirm that the grievance has been dismissed. The complainant has a right of appeal. Red Bull is confident that the investigation has been fair, rigorous and impartial. The investigation report is confidential and contains the private information of the parties and third parties who assisted in the investigation, and therefore we will not be commenting further out of respect for all concerned. And it finishes by saying Red Bull will continue striving to meet the highest workplace standards. So, says quite a bit, but no real detail. The core takeaway is obviously the point that the grievance has been dismissed. There was actually a little bit of debate in the paddock from some of the people I've spoken to about what does that actually mean. It's quite strange and specific terminology. You wouldn't normally see it. I expected a bit more terminology saying cleared of any wrongdoing or something like that, but that's the language they've gone with. Maybe it's a second language thing as well, given this obviously originates in Austria. But it's an emphatic underlining of the situation, but obviously, as it mentions as well, the complainant has a right of appeal, so we don't actually know 100% if this is over yet.
Plus, we should also note this isn't a formal legal process, so there's always legal avenues to be explored as well. So there's no indication that that will be taken, but it's worth noting. So inevitably, Scott, everyone listening will want to know the full details of what the grievance was, who was involved, why he was cleared. What can we add on that?
Very, very little. As I mentioned in the statement, they want to keep this confidential. They are preaching confidentiality. They obviously. We only have the company's word on how this has been handled for starters, but you can't. It's hard to say this, but you have to take it on trust. We don't have a choice. We have to accept that this is the way it's been done because Red Bull has the information, and Red Bull's not going to reveal the detailed report. There has obviously been a lot of speculation about who it might have involved and what might have happened. I've probably heard a dozen different versions in the F1 paddock, and I don't think well, first of all, it's not right, proper, or probably legal for us to relay some of them, given the nature of the claims involved. We're definitely not going to engage in that kind of wild speculation. I know that some details leaked in the Dutch media, but I'm not 100% convinced that all of those details have been corroborated by the report, shall we say. There are some suggestions, certainly within the Red Bull camp, that is not an accurate reflection of what went down. So, yeah, if you're looking for identities and specific details of what was alleged, what was proven, what wasn't proven, we haven't got that, and I dare say we won't be getting that either.
Yeah, I suspect it's going to be a case of that'll never be entirely revealed. And obviously there's been people who've been calling for transparency and that kind of thing, which is a laudable objective, but obviously this is an investigation that's been conducted involving a few people. You can't go throwing around details about what the claimant said, for example. So, as you said, we have to take it on trust. That doesn't mean we have to completely buy it automatically and say everything's fine. You keep an eye out, see what's said, see what happens. But that's the thing.
This is the situation.
This is the situation we're in because we can't talk about the investigation, what's in it. I hope they have taken it seriously. I hope they've done it properly, because this stuff has to be taken seriously and executed in a correct and fair way.
I think it was Max Verstappen who said in the press conference today that he was trusting the process, and you might not like it, and it's difficult to take things on trust, as I said before, but that is what we need to do as well. You need to trust the process in these things, and I'm sure that there are people that will doubt that it was done properly. They'll doubt the outcome and what they can believe, and if they didn't, and unless they have the report in front of them, you are taking things on faith rather than actually buying into it. I understand that. I agree to a certain extent, and I hope that the way that we're coming across right now isn't. It's not about being defensive. It's not about justifying what Red Bull's done.
If you're British, you're biased. We all know it. British biased. It's cancer in Formula 1. We need to remove that, so no more British people in Formula 1 allowed. Oh shit, Chris Hornet is British. What the fuck do we do then?
It's not about trying to just say that's it, Horner's off the hook, everything's okay, and that there's no area of grey in any of this. I hope it just reflects this is an incredibly awkward situation. It has been throughout, and just because the process has ended, it doesn't mean we now get to say whatever we want. We could do, but I think we'd be doing people a disservice by pretending that we know more than we do, and two, by shoveling
so you can
speculation down their throat, which is by any measure going to be massively wide of the mark. The only thing we can say with certainty is he remains as team principal and CEO, and
for now,
in the phrasing of that document, the grievance has been dismissed.
Yeah, exactly. And the one wider thing is, hopefully there's also a lesson here to the wider world of Formula 1 to make sure everybody takes their workplace practices seriously and the way they treat people seriously across the board. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, I think just to pick up on a point that you made in previously about hoping that this was taken seriously, I think the fact that Red Bull, the parent company, got involved, the fact that they took it out of Red Bull Racing's hands, because how often do you see things, not necessarily of this exact manner, but various disciplinary issues, conduct issues, whatever, it becomes an internal matter, and we're dealing with this internally, and that's a way of sweeping it under the rug. I think the fact that Red Bull outsourced this and had it as an external investigation with
Blizzard did that too. They outsourced their problems to some great company.
A proper, qualified, relevant individual leading it, and the fact that this took a long time. I think we found out about this, and I say we, as the collective, we found out of this, was it 3 weeks ago now, the week before the Red Bull car launch? 2 or 3 weeks ago. But it was going on in the background a long time before that, and I think the sum total of the time spent on this is probably coming close to 2 months. And I understand why some people might think, oh, it's very convenient that this has just been wrapped up on the eve of the new season. And I suspect that to a degree it has been expedited to try, because this has been hanging over Red Bull for a long time and there has been so much speculation. But I don't believe the investigation, the process itself, was hurried up. I would hope that the only thing that was expedited was Red Bull's directors meeting and actually coming to a conclusion on it and deciding on it. The process itself seems to have been quite thorough. There's some stuff that we do just simply have to trust. The one thing I would say about what we could learn from now on is Christian Horner told us several times at the launch, and then again when he appeared in the test last week, he couldn't talk about this while the process was ongoing. I suspect he can't tell us much more now that the process is finished because of that confidentiality that Red Bull stressed the importance of. But maybe Horner will start to sort of provide a few more details when he finally emerges, because he's here in Bahrain. He wasn't in the paddock today, but he will be back in the paddock tomorrow, which is Thursday, as we sit here and record this.
But it's going to remain a talking point and a subject of questions, isn't it? That's...
Oh my god, that I saw they did it in what's it called? The qualifying talk place. Oh no, class. That oh my god, they asked Max Verstappen his opinion about this, and he gave a really great PR speak. Yeah, PR. What do you call it? PR stuff. To say, I have no opinion about this. I'm here to drive the car, not to sue Christian Horner. PR speak.
Emphatically going to be the case. Right, Scott, there was speculation about Horner's future being in doubt regardless of whether or not he was cleared. So what do we actually know about his position now?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, he is team principal and CEO, and my understanding is that there's no doubt about that. There's no disputing that. So Horner should be... I've made some predictions on the podcast before that have bit me in the backside pretty quickly, but I'd be surprised if Horner is not in the paddock tomorrow. Red Bull team gear, team spokesperson, front and centre again, and my suspicion is we will hear from him sooner rather than later, because he will want to address this now that it is resolved in his favour. The reason there is there was a little bit of wider doubt, we can get onto this as well, is that there's been talk for quite a while now of some politics going on within the Red Bull F1 empire, and a bit of a power struggle.
I think that's lies. Big lies from Toto Wolff. He's not a trusted source. Just lies comes from him.
Struggle emerging between the Red Bull Racing side in Milton Keynes, led by Horner, and then Red Bull centrally in Austria. And I think where that comes from is Horner's power base has grown quite significantly over the course of this team's existence. There's now an entire engine facility that exists, for example. The second Red Bull team, RB, now has a place on the, or will soon have, a place on the Milton Keynes campus. And with F1 being what it is, and in the way that Red Bull sets out its stall and shapes its post-Dietrich Mateschitz future since he died in late 2022, I get the impression that there's a desire for Red Bull to have this F1 team more under its remit, because Red Bull Racing has used the Red Bull name and existed. Red Bull Racing has used the Red Bull name, but pretty much existed out of its remit for the last couple of decades. That was the beauty of what Mateschitz did with this organisation and this programme. He just let it be what it, he put people in charge who knew what they were doing, and he left them to it. I don't think Red Bull now, the post-Mateschitz Red Bull, is quite comfortable with that and wants to take a bit of it back. I think we do need to view that separately to what's happened here, because, as we say, serious claim, investigated properly, taken seriously. But it is possible that this has expedited or brought to the fore some tensions that were bubbling away in the background.
Well, exactly. When there's politics involved and this sort of thing flares up, inevitably that becomes a sort of second order thing. And I think it's worth noting as well that, as well as the kind of Red Bull F1 ecosystem and the Austrian Red Bull side, there's also the Thai Red Bull side, which is the majority owner of Red Bull. The Austrian side is the minority owner. It's not a huge difference in the ownership, but obviously Mateschitz had the controlling management control of the whole thing, but there's quite a complicated set of politics across the board there, which is interesting. But I guess we have to assume that now this has been dealt with, and as we mentioned earlier, there's still ways it could flare up again if there's an appeal, this kind of thing. But it's got
skip that.
Hopefully have put any destabilising effect on the actual race team, the Red Bull technology, Red Bull Racing, all that kind of thing side of the operation. That would have settled it down, because if you're somebody working for that team and you don't know what's going to happen, that's going to have a little bit of an effect, even if it's just in the back of your mind. So this will have settled things down.
It will have, yeah, definitely. I think the stuff I'm talking about is obviously playing out in the sort of medium longer term. So what happens in terms of, is this sort of one serious situation faced for Horner, but he knows there's another battle sort of happening in the background, and that could come to the fore shortly. But that is much bigger picture. In the short term, it seems very unlikely that Red Bull will be impacted by this, given Horner being cleared is the exact opposite of him being removed from the position, and that's what would have been the potentially enormous immediate destabiliser. Clearly, Horner has said several times, hasn't he, through this, that it's been business as normal for Red Bull. And actually, in terms of the preparation for the season and in what they've been doing,
that can be taken out really bad if the stuff he may have done is really bad. But I really think he just did a bad comment in a wrong place to the wrong person, and it just went out downhill. He thought he would be funny, but he wasn't. It was a really bad dad joke. No one laughed. Yeah.
With their car, that has clearly been the case, because they've developed what looks like a fantastic racing car extremely well. It looked fantastic in the test last week. The team was well organised at the test. It executed things flawlessly. Trackside, there's been zero indication of destabilisation while this has been hanging over them. So it shouldn't have any impact now that it is, as best we can see it, resolved. Because now it will be their leader is in place. They know what they're doing in the short term. There's no awkward questions and treading on eggshells about the place at all. They can just get on with the task at hand.
And obviously this has been a weird story for F1 as a whole. There's all this speculation and publicity, and we've had statements from Ford and F1, the FIA. There were suggestions.
Oh my God, the Ford stuff. Why are they trying to... I mean, why do they care so much? I mean, I understand it's USA, but holy shit, do they really care so much about that? Man, they're weird.
from Lewis Hamilton today that the whole investigation was a really big moment for F1. We should note that was before he knew what the outcome was and what was actually talked about. But how did you find it today in the paddock, given everyone knew the conclusion was likely coming towards the end of the day?
A little bit strange in that there's an almost, in some quarters there's almost like a slightly unfair and slightly strange, almost like hunger and anticipation for it because it's such a big story. And I always feel that's a little bit awkward because one way or the other there were going to be people at the heart of this that were going to be impacted by because one way or the other there were going to be people at the heart of this impacted by whatever the outcome was. But there was just, one of the big things was there was just a lot of fascination, I use that word carefully because I don't want it to sound too positive, in what exactly the outcome would be because of the impact of it. Because if Horner hadn't been cleared, if the complaint, if the grievance hadn't been dismissed, presumably he then gets removed from the role. If he gets removed from the role, the number of times today I heard a version of scorched earth policy, or he knows where the skeletons are, and that kind of thing. So people were thinking like, well, if Horner goes down, he's going to go down swinging, that kind of thing. That's where this kind of story takes parts of the F1 paddock. It does become this much bigger thing, and I understand that. I understand there's like a natural, almost human curiosity, isn't there, with anything like this. But one of the things we've said, as boring as it may have sounded to whenever it has cropped up briefly on the podcast, or when people in the paddock have asked us, is we have tried to be a bit more middle of the road with it, because there was a process going on that had to be respected. We don't know the details. We still don't know the details. And getting caught up in that speculation can easily make you lose sight of what was actually important about this whole thing.
Yeah, I'd certainly agree with that. I must admit, although it was hanging over the day, during the actual day, it wasn't particularly in my mind. Yeah, there were conversations cropping up about it, but there was lots of other stuff to have done and be doing and talking to people about. There's going to be a Grand Prix this weekend.
Yeah, I understand why, because it has been a highly unusual situation, and that's the unusual nature of it was probably exacerbated by the fact that Horner has still been front and centre while it's going on. If he'd recused himself while it was going on, then it would have played out completely in the background. Yeah, he would have been notable for his absence at certain times. If there had been another Red Bull representative in a team boss press conference or speaking to the Sky F1 cameras or something like that, you'd have had those moments. But it would have played out a little bit more quietly. So yeah, I think ultimately it's flared up in certain ways over the last couple of weeks, but there were times today where it felt like we're on the eve of the season, focus is elsewhere. You get the questions in the press conference and stuff like that brings it to the fore, but this wasn't something that was on everybody's lips for every minute of the day. There was also the broader excitement about getting the season going, and then some other testing stories and specific things like that.
Yeah, exactly. And at least it means these statements can now stop, although it'll be down to those entities to satisfy themselves that they're happy with the way this process has been done. Obviously, I think Ford talks about wanting to have updates and transparency. Obviously, the FIA and F1
they waded in quite fiercely, didn't they, Ford?
Exactly, yeah. So there's still some loose ends to be tied up there, and I suspect Red Bull will have to be a little bit more forthcoming to some of their partners about it. But again, it still comes down to this being a process-driven thing. There's an investigation, there's individuals involved, so their privacy also has to be respected.
Hey, it's Justine, and today we are checking out the Remarkable 2, the ultimate note-taking toolkit. Oh my goodness, this is so cool. Like, this feels like paper. Let's see the different types of marker styles that we have. So we've got a ballpoint pen, flatliner, pencil, mechanical.
This I would say, I don't know anything about this, but because this is a YouTube ad, it must be bad.
Pencil, highlighter, marker, paintbrush, and a calligraphy pen. This is fun.
Whoa.
Selection tools. Let's see. Oh, that works pretty fast too.
Oh,
my gosh, look at this. I'm just moving it around. So we're gonna name this, and there it is. Justine's notebook. This is cool. Look at all these different templates that we have. College, legal, week planner. This could change my life. I have needed something to just keep me organized, and it needed to be a piece of tech, but I didn't quite know what it was. And I think this might be exactly what I've been looking for. After some testing and getting to know Remarkable, like, I can see why so many people love this product. It really...
I mean, my life was flashing by when I saw this lava. I mean, 141 levels with all this stuff on me. It's a nightmare to die. Disgusting. Oh shit. Let's see, can we? And this is also, I don't want to remove the lava. Just have it. Because I'm doing something that lavas only generated lava can be used. Because for fun.
It really is like a digital notebook. It has that analog feeling of real paper, but with none of the drawbacks that come along with many other digital devices. While this is a digital device, it doesn't feel digital, which is, I think, the coolest part about it.
Oh my
I also love
God.
that there's a desktop
You
mobile
mean it?
app, which lets you tap into your work no matter where you are. So overall, I've been super impressed with this device. Now, if you want to learn more about Remarkable, definitely check this out. Bye!
Fuck no. And this is also a really great way to waste money for the people you don't care about. But sometimes you can actually skip.
Right, while the Horner story was the big talking point, there was plenty going on at the track today. What grabbed your attention? And I'm asking you this not necessarily entirely knowing, because we run around doing various things, and obviously our paths do cross during the day, but we haven't had our end of day download of each other, as it were.
No, this got in the way of that, absolutely. I was curious going into today, just to sort of pick up on a couple of testing threads that just felt like they were a little bit unresolved, and or just to get a bit more clued up on. So I was quite interested to find out a couple of things about a couple of teams, relatively small. One example being I wanted to learn a bit more about the Williams car characteristics, because they seem to have transformed from last season. There's weaknesses that are now strengths, like that under braking in combination corner entries with steering lock and braking applied. That now seems to be a Williams strong point, not a weakness anymore, but it's come at the cost of some rear end instability further round the corner, for example. And then McLaren was interesting because Lando Norris said during the press conference that he said something along the lines of certain things have happened that means we're not where I want us to be or we want to be as a team for the start of the season. And I think that's about they've made progress with their weaknesses, but not enough to cure their weaknesses at a track like this, which exposes them so much. This is slow speed performance, slow corner performance, and whatnot. And they felt like if they'd got to the end of last season and done Bahrain, they would have also been weak. So there's still room to improve, and this is where some upgrades early in the season will come. But I think so there were smaller threads like that, and then I think the overall kind of there was an almost anticipation of we're about to get some answers. So these media days are always a little bit of an anticlimax because you're in the paddock and it feels like day one proper, but it's not really. It's kind of day zero of the new season.
Exactly, yeah. Nothing new has happened since testing other than a lot of number crunching and analysis going on back at the factory. And there's been a lot of work going on. For example, George Russell was saying that he and Hamilton were there doing work in the sim over the weekend. They had a big team meeting on the Monday as well after the test. So lots of work ongoing. But yeah, a few interesting things today. Went to see what the two Alpine drivers, Esteban Ocon and Pierre Gasly, had to say, and they're trying to be as positive as they can, but it's not a tremendously positive situation for Alpine.
What?
They're
Why
trying to
not?
accentuate the positives insofar as it's a change in concept. We're obviously going to take some time to learn the car, but we're confident there's some good long-term future. But yeah, I tried to get both of them to explain why they were confident that there's good long-term potential in this, given they've missed targets. And it was interesting because Ocon was kind of on his absolute best behaviour. He was very, very, very on message. Pierre Gasly was too, but with Gasly I found if you put something emphatically to him, he would accept it or agree with you. So for example, I said to him, right, you say you're confident in the concept, but it's abundantly clear you've missed targets. This team has missed targets. How concerning is that? And so he said, well, yeah, we have missed targets. He was asked about the car balance, and he said, didn't say too much about it. And I said, well, I've been watching this car trackside. It doesn't look like a good car to drive. Throughout the whole 3 days of running, it's not looked good. And he did then say, he sort of thought and smiled and went,
I can't hide.
Yeah,
You've seen it.
It's not an easy car to drive. So I thought Gasly was quite clever in that he wasn't saying anything he shouldn't have done. But if a correct observation or bit of information was presented to him, he would accept it. So I think Alpine are in trouble. They don't expect to get out of Q1. There is a lot of work to do. That car's
they did
it's not working that well aero-wise. I'm quite concerned, actually. Yes, it's a changing concept, but it's...
How? Oh my god, also, they didn't get out of Q1. Like, how can I have fallen so hard?
not doing what it should do. So it is going to be a really tough start to the season for Alpine. Elsewhere, George Russell was very upbeat. He said that the rear end instability they'd had is cured, which I thought was quite strong. So I then asked him, well, you said cured. How confident are you in that absolute? And he gave quite a good answer. He said, yeah, we think this has gone. There's nothing in anything we've done to say that problem is still there.
That's really interesting. It's very emphatic, but especially before we go into a race weekend and have actually run the car low fuel, softest tyres, and actually push it to the limit in qualifying.
Exactly, yeah. And he said, well, there's obviously left room for the unexpected, but he said, even though obviously this isn't the perfect track to expose that, I did say, what would it be like if you tomorrow took it into Sector 1 at Suzuka, which would not be a good place for the old characteristics of that car. So he was really positive about that, which is convincing. And in fact, he said, actually, it's so much better, we've got so much control of it, that we actually had too much stability at times in the test, and we were having understeer as a result. So that's all part of the learning process, the relearning process, a very different car. But he did say they had a few bouncing problems in testing. Now, this isn't 2022 style Mercedes in crisis bouncing and porpoising. It's just the thing that people do encounter if they go a little bit too low, run a bit too stiff, that kind of thing.
That car was running very low at times as well.
And they were doing setup experiments. So Russell was saying we need to watch out for that. So let's see where that is. And also Charles Leclerc was pretty upbeat, confident the car will be stronger in the races. He did say they've still got some work to do on low speed performance. I did ask him to elaborate a bit on that, and he said, well, it's just the understeer basically, which he did say that's the generic problem with this era of cars. But certainly he gave the indication they don't think they're the market leader in the sort of slow corner entry, getting the low. The car being able to attack the corner as you want to. Still a little bit of understeer there, but still fairly confident. So it's all very interesting. The feeling is still Red Bull is going to be ahead, but there's questions in that group behind, and questions of how close will they be. There's a lot to happen this season. I don't think people should be giving up on it yet.
No, it's going to be interesting. We obviously get our first answers tomorrow, day one proper. We'll be going trackside, won't we, to see these cars in anger in the FP2 qualifying simulation. So it'll be I'm really interested to see what we learn from that. I bumped into Carlos Sainz on the way out of the track today, and I asked him, are you going to give us a more fun season this year? And he smiled and he said, I think it'll be better. So I'm hoping it'll be a lot better, and then we'll find out tomorrow if we're edging closer. Then this weekend we'll actually get the answer.
I ruined my fun wall that I place, or not mine out. So it's the cover, the behind wall. But I have ruined it here. How can it Okay, I don't know the song. Let's.
Answers if Red Bull's actually got a close,
1 minute
close threat.
Well, attention now turns to the Bahrain Grand Prix weekend proper. Remember, it's a Saturday race, so free practice on Thursday, qualifying on Friday. And of course, we'll hear more from Christian Horner and Red Bull later in the weekend. So that's it from day one, or day zero, if you like, at Sakir Circuit. So stay with us for everything you need to know from the F1 2024 season opener.
The Athletic.
Like, what the fuck is this ad? Fucking trying to do. Oh no! Relad. Gameplay. Begun. Beganovish. DELBEG. That's what's everything. I mean. Oh, we can watch this. Just a small clip from Kim Illman.
G'day from the media centre here at the Bahrain International Circuit. And has Max Verstappen won the 2024 championship?
Yes.
Well, he qualified on pole tonight. Did it easily. Well, when I say easily, it was a quarter of a second margin to Charles Leclerc and then about a tenth to George Russell. If you've listened to any of the press conferences or interviews with any of the top drivers, they've all been asked about Max and the championship this year, and they've all just pretty much gifted it to him. Yes, they believe that he has got such a good car and is such a good driver that really they're all just battling for second position. I spoke to one driver about the prospects for the season, and he said it's all very interesting until Max starts winning. Now look, he hasn't won yet, as it is 9 p.m. here local time on quali night, but he's odds-on favourite to win tomorrow, and I think we're pretty much going to see his 4th World Drivers' Championship in 2024. After the race, he was pretty calm, didn't jump about or... 24 after the race. Yeah. He was pretty calm, didn't jump about or get too celebratory. Got out of his car, took his helmet off, and then went straight over to his chief mechanic in Matt Keller. Thanked him for his efforts, and I think he was only 1 or 2 people away from me, so I was pretty close to the action. And shortly afterwards, he found his trainer, Rupert Mannering, who used to train Carlos Sainz. And I walked back to the Parc Fermé with Rupert and said, look, you better get used to this, and he was pretty smiling. I think we can say that the Christian Horner issue had no effect on Max's driving tonight. There were plenty of rumours floating around the paddock today that there might be some more bombshell information dropped tonight, but that hasn't eventuated as at 1 minute past 9 p.m. I did have a chat with one of the crew, and the same crew member that I asked how were things yesterday, and that crew member said better, and I said, how about today? Slightly worse, was the response. Christian's wife, Jerry Halliwell, has landed in Bahrain, and I'm told will be on the grid tomorrow. Christian was in well early this morning. His PR people were out on that hospitality suite throughout the morning, briefing journalists both on and off the record. Off the record means they can't report on it. And his PR people were saying that there was no way Christian was going to comment on this issue. The PR team and the marketing team have been meeting too to work out what the strategy is going forward for the team, because as you can imagine, it's had a destabilising effect on the team and also on sponsors like Ford, Visa.
Ford can do whatever they want.
Cash App, I imagine those companies are well concerned about what's going on. Let's move on to something more positive. Günther Steiner, great to see him reporting today with RTL. He has a 7-race deal with the German broadcaster. He'll be fronting up to those 7 races, and he was out in the paddock today. They don't actually have a commentary booth. All the stuff that they do is from the paddock. On top of the 7 races he's doing with RTL, he's also coming to Australia and working for Channel 10 and doing 2 private shows. One, I believe, sold out, the other one's still available. Everybody got around him in the paddock yesterday. Liam Parker, who works for F1, even jokingly came up and checked his pass. Today he was super popular with a lot of kids in the paddock who are enjoying their time chasing selfies from drivers and team principals alike. You might remember that going back to 2022, Gunther had a run-in with Sky Sports Germany. It came after a controversial interview in Baku where basically Sky told the Haas team principal that he should stop criticising Mick Schumacher in public and that the other team principals would not do that. Instead, they said he should be giving Mick a hug. And of course, they wanted to see Mick do well. Since that time, he's had nothing to do with Sky Sport, and they're an important broadcaster in a large F1 country. Well, I can tell you that issue has been resolved. The Sky Sports crew sat down with Gunther here at this race, and all has been forgotten. Are there any other races that Gunther will be attending as a TV commentator? Yes. He's going to Miami, where he'll be working with Canal Plus, the French network. Roman Grosjean works for Canal Plus, and Roman's here this weekend. Always like having a chat with Roman. He's a funny man. Of course, he has his private pilot's license. Oh, and of course, this track has very special memories for the Phoenix, because this is indeed where he crashed going back in 2020, the year that I did not do Formula One.
What?
Because of COVID. Jackie Stewart was here today, leading some tours with Rolex, and I caught him yesterday talking to the Crown Prince of Bahrain, and I did like the fact that he took his cap off for him. He tipped his lid to the Prince, who has been very good to me, arranging a couple of those great activities you might have seen on my recent video. George Russell in Parc Ferme, I know I'm jumping around a bit here, I was quite amazed because we don't tend to say much in Parc Ferme, and George just looked at me and said, "We watched your video this morning." I said, "Which one?" He said, "The latest one." Oh, very nice. I hope you gave it a like. Nice to know that some of the people I'm talking about are actually watching the video. Will Max be watching tonight? I think he's got more important things to do, but I'm certainly glad that you are watching. Oh, and George, please, no doubt you'll be watching this video. Could you please like and comment? Thank you very much in advance. And Carmen, if he doesn't do it, could you please do it on his phone or laptop?
All these feelings keep making
Trygg Hansa. Trygghet för livet.
My favourite photo of the day was this one. This is Lando and his dad Adam, and Adam is a very funny man. He's one of the richest men in Britain, but very down to earth, dresses comfortably. I love dressing comfortably. He gave his son a hug just before I took this picture, or series of pictures, and then they walked together. And it's a great relationship that the pair have. I enjoy both of their company. What other partners did we have? Oh, we had Kevin Magnussen's wife, Louise. She had her two daughters with her in the paddock today. Pierre Gasly's girlfriend, Kika, was with him. She's from Portugal and one of the best dressed women in the paddock pretty much every time she arrives. This morning, early, Carlos Sainz was dropped off in a car that I'll tell you about in the Drivers Drove video that comes up next week. She was sitting in the back seat. He and his trainer got out, came into the paddock, and then she took the car and left. Why? Well, it's pretty boring sitting around a track when your boyfriend's out doing F1 stuff. I gather she came back sometime later. George Russell arrived with his girlfriend Carmen, and I did notice that there was a stain on Carmen's handbag. And finally, on the partner front, Daniel Ricciardo's girlfriend was here. That is Heidi Berger, daughter of this man, Gerhard Berger, and the pair were in the hospitality suite at Visa Cash App Racing Bulls X AlphaTauri or AlphaTauri.
Visa, Cash App, RB, Formula 1 team.
If you're Christian Horner, because he does call it AlphaTauri, despite the fact that the team tells us to call it, or told us to call it AlphaTauri. Lewis Hamilton was the last driver to arrive yesterday, and he's often the last driver to arrive at the track, but yesterday was 34 minutes prior to the first session. That is very unusual. And he came from the other entrance. Normally they come from the media centre entrance, but traffic was so bad, he was so late that he had to park at the other end and make the long walk down the paddock. And what was Lewis driving? Well, you'll have to wait for my Drivers Drove video, which comes out very shortly. Along the lines of paddock walks, the drivers are being just mobbed by a group of young kids. It's quite funny. It's like watching seagulls to a chip, and they're often a better indicator of who's going where than we would normally get. But some drivers have woken up to this. Lewis Hamilton was on a scooter last night, as was Fernando Alonso, beating a hasty retreat after meeting his press commitments following the second practice session. On a completely different note, heading out to the garage as I was looking at some of the floors, and I'm talking OORS, not AWS floors. Have a look at the Mercedes. They've got their drivers' first names and the coordinates of the track that we're at, so that will change for each race.
Wow.
Well, that completes day 3 here at the Bahrain Grand Prix. Only thing for you to do right now is to subscribe if you haven't done so, and like this video, and catch up with all my other content right here. Thanks for watching, and stay passionate. Shortly afterwards, you got... Oh, somebody dropped something.
Yep.
It's a camera. George Russell arrived with his girlfriend Carmen. Thanks for that.
Soon time to get all the pickaxes. What's it called? XP farming repair. What is this? But to repair them. But holy shit. No music in Minecraft. So quiet. But yeah. It's, let's see what last thing could be said. Let's see, is that right? Yeah. It could work. Was meant to... who cares? Let's see. So, okay, that's... Max will probably win. Charles Leclerc, P2. Hopefully Lando Norris, P3. And then we have Sergio Perez and then Carlos Sainz. Fernando Alonso, George Russell, Lewis Hamilton. Let's see. Maybe Stroll. Let's see. Max, Charles, Norris, Perez, Carlos Sainz, Fernando Alonso, Russell, Hamilton. Who will get points more? Who are we missing? Oh, Oscar Piastri. Oh shit. Oscar Piastri. Oh shit. Max, Charles, Norris, Perez, Carlos Sainz, Fernando Alonso, Oscar Piastri, Russell, Lewis Hamilton, Stroll. That will probably be how the race ends. And yeah, tomorrow Dino Beganovic will start P1. Hopefully his first win in Formula 3. And what hopes do I have? Oh! First win for... Where do I have a... Oh no, this is P3, P2. First win for Borteleto will be fun. He will also start in pole position. So Dino Beganovic will win F3, Borteleto F2, and Max Verstappen F1. But hopefully that will happen. But I will see tomorrow. So yeah, until then I will say goodbye. And then more. It's so much more mining. Holy shit, this was boring. We have, well, I have this place to mine out also, and then we have this one. Like you can see the, and then 3 places over there. More chests are needed. I mean, this was just almost this place we need. This times 3. But that will happen tomorrow. So until then.